I had a meltdown right before walking down the aisle. I'm
Mm.
crying going down the aisle, and people are like, oh, she's crying for joy. I'm like, no, I am shooketh.
There's a saying that you can have it all, but not at once. It sounds like you were excelling in your career. You have been for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And are you saying that affected your marriage in a negative way and family life?
Absolutely. You can have it all, but not at the same time.
You know, God gives us free will.
He sure does.
So how much of a role does God play when it comes to our spouse?
There is no fairy tale one, I believe. I believe that there's people that God puts in your life that could be the one, but the one is, well, you become one in front of God, and that's what marriage is.
We're stepping high, we're chasing dreams. Selena Hill, setting the scene. Life's a story, let's unfold. Sharing wisdom, tales untold.
Hey fam, and welcome to Over the Hill, the podcast that helps you ascend to new heights in relationships, success, and finance, and equips you to build the life you deserve. I'm Selena Hill, your sister in purpose, and today I have the privilege to speak with Liv Lewis, an award-winning communication strategist, integrated marketing expert, Emmy award-winning producer, and the founder of Lived, a multi-platform community dedicated to empowering Black and brown women navigating separation and divorce. Liv, thank you so much for joining me here in the studio today. I am super excited to talk to you about the best ways that women can navigate the emotional, financial, and even the identity shifting experience that comes with divorce, and how you feel that women can become more empowered and stronger and focused from that. So before we get into it, I want to just, put some respect on your name. Your bio is so amazing. You have over 20 years of agency and entrepreneurial experience. You have shaped some of the world's most compelling brands. You've spearheaded integrated marketing and communications efforts for the likes of Calvin Klein, Vera Wayne, McDonald's, Neutrogena, Tide, Crest, and beyond that, beyond your professional accolades, you're a mother, mother of two.
Mom in chief, I like to say.
Mom in chief.
Or I coined it from Michelle Obama.
I love that.
Yes.
And you are you also had a divorce after 14 years of marriage. And I want to talk about that because I feel like, especially for successful women and career-oriented women, I feel like we take failure a little bit harder, and like we look at something like it's easy to sort of paint a picture, right, of what we want our life to look like. And for a while, I like outside looking in, people would say, "Oh, she has the perfect picture of life," right?
It's like you're in my brain. Yeah, that's
literally,
100%. That's 100%
literally.
true.
So we're going to talk about that, and I'm super excited to talk about it. And that's why I wanted to sort of just lead because divorce doesn't just affect your family life. But like as a career woman, as a working mom, I'm sure it had, it can impact you in certain areas there too. So, but let's take it from the beginning, Liv.
Yes, let's roll it back.
Let's roll it back. So, I mean, tell me, like, how did your love story begin?
Oh, my love story. I will say that it began as someone who didn't actually love herself with the decisions that I was making, but didn't know it at the time. And so to your point about being so successful, I think that came with me and my vision of and my understanding of self-worth and my understanding of my value. So when I grew up, I actually grew up in Africa for a majority of my childhood. And in Africa, it's very competitive. I grew up with my grandparents. I'm actually a product of divorce. My mom went through a divorce, sent me to live with my grandparents at the age of, I would say, 18 months. And while I didn't have the language, that definitely did something to me because for me, I started to have questions about, well, why did she send me away? And is it because I wasn't worthy? Is it because I wasn't valued? Didn't really have the language, but definitely felt it. So in Africa, I was an other, I was an American. And so fast forward coming to America at the age of 9, I started to really tried to figure out, well, where do I fit? And why did my mom send it away? And where is my dad? And so all of these preconceived notions and actions and identity things is really what led me to really lean in on, well, I'm going to show everybody. Right. And so I'm an overachiever, I'm an overfunctioner, and I put all of that into my work. So much so that I would say that that's probably one of the reasons why the marriage failed, because my focus was so on making sure that I was a perfect marketer, the perfect person, the one come up with all of the solutions, that I lost focus on the importance of family, of marriage, of my values, of my beliefs, because I was so focused on proving myself. And also, too, I think I shifted my identity to make it be about my work. Right. And so that's kind of how this all started. When I finally found someone, and I'm a Christian, and I found someone who was in a church, I was like, oh my gosh, here's the answer. And not really understanding what I believed marriage should be, or what my vision of love should be. And I was looking to be rescued, if I'm honest. I was looking for someone to kind of save me from some of the things I was trying to focus on from an inner child perspective, some of the trauma that I was dealing with, abandonment issues, right? And I brought all of that into a relationship that I really probably should have done some work on myself first before leaning in and saying I do. But yeah, that is how we got to marriage, and that is how I started kind of really think about myself. And when I think about even on the marriage day, I had a meltdown right before walking down the aisle. I'm crying going down the aisle, and people are like, oh, she's crying for joy. I'm like, no, I am shooketh.
So there were signs that you said, so you dropped so many gems.
Yes.
Right there.
So
I'm
let
like,
me slow myself
no,
down.
no, not
Yes.
even. It's like so many things that
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to grasp. And one of the things, because I did start off with your bio, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying that you can have it all, but not at
At
once.
the same time, that's
Do
so
you
true.
believe, because it sounds like you were excelling in your career. You have been for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And are you saying that affected your
Yeah.
marriage in a negative way and family life?
Absolutely. You can have it all, but not at the same time. And you have to I understand what your alignment and your purpose is. And I love that you said your girl in purpose in your intro, because if you think that you can hold all of that, I mean, think about it. Married, and I have 2 kids, and they were 19 months apart. I needed to figure out, well, who am I in this marriage? And we did that. I think we were married for 3 years before I had my son, but I mean, my son came and then my daughter came, and it was like, oh my goodness. And I'm still trying to be the best marketer I could be. So much so that I focused on the wrong things. Now, I was saying that my family was first, and I was saying that my family is important, but my actions were incongruent. And I think a lot of that too was because I knew the marriage was not a happy one. Now, we didn't have fights, it wasn't contentious, but there was just a lacking of intimacy and true knowing that I sensed early on, but I didn't know any better. I didn't know that that was like something to explore. And so you just kind of sweep things under the rug, and you're focused on the kids and you're focused on your careers, that you miss working on the marriage. And because then we had 2 kids, work and job and salary were a concern, I just drove right into let me just focus on work. And I sidestepped the marriage. I sidestepped some of the key things and missed some of the key milestones because I focused so heavily on my career.
When you say that there were some early signs there,
Yeah.
you said like lack of intimacy. You said even on your wedding day,
Yes,
you
girl.
were crying
Child.
tears that were not of joy. So if you can take us back, like how long were you dating or courting, however you want to frame that?
Absolutely.
And I guess were there signs before you got married?
Absolutely. So we met at the church, and he showed interest early on, but transparently, I was not attracted. However, I said, you know what? I'm so used to this way or this kind of person. Let me try something different. So try something different, man of God, new Christian. And so I'm like, well, this perhaps is the way. Now, early signs, we were never alone together. And even when we were, others were around. we never really asked the questions to really get to know a person. It was almost surface. And again, this is just naive being. No one's really around us to say, have you talked about this? Have you talked about that? And I started to recognize that I wanted more, but I couldn't really articulate what that more was. And I was mindful, as a Christian, they're like, well, don't have sex before marriage, so you're going to burn in hell, right? So we were really, really mindful of making sure we honored God in our dating. So we dated for 8 months and then got engaged for another 8 months. So it was really, really fast. And even my mom was like, you're moving a little too fast. Do you know who you're marrying? And, I was young and I didn't allow people to speak into my life transparently. I was like, yeah, it's fine. God got this. Girl, there's God got this, and there's practical things you need to know about each other that we just didn't. Or there are things I would see and think, oh, that'll change when we get married. Now, the red flag is you want to change someone after you get married is a sign that maybe you should have a conversation about the thing you see before you walk down the aisle, right? And I would also say we never allowed individuals to really get to know us as a couple. We were so guarded in our courtship, mainly because he was a high prominent person within the church, that also isolated us from getting advice from other people who kind of walk down the road of engagement and divorce, really understanding what are the things to be asking for, what are the tough moments in the marriage to anticipate, right, and plan for. So all those things we didn't do.
So, and I like that you said just those practical steps weren't there. I think that, in full transparency, a lot of Christians who want to honor God by not having premarital sex. There's a timeline when it comes to courtship, right? There's only so far you can go. You're not going to be able to date for 5 years and live with that person. So how do you sort of, I guess, navigate that? Honoring God while still giving yourself, I guess, enough time or maximizing the time you have in that premarital state so that you're getting the information you need to make sure you're making a sound decision.
That's a great question. If I were to go back in time, I would have said to Liv, I would have asked, who are your board of directors of your life that you can talk to about this courtship and talk to about some of the things you're seeing so that you feel safe enough to bring these things to an individual or to people to get advice. In the Christian courtship, it's like it's a hurry up offense to not sin, right? You're almost rushing to the aisle, but I was so guarded, and I'm taking the ownership and accountability, yes, therapy, in allowing and being transparent and vulnerable about even my expectations going into the marriage. And I didn't ask his. But how I didn't even know that those were things to ask. And I think in Christian dating, I think there's the hurry up to down the aisle and trust God. But I think having individuals in the fiance, the girl, and the male, in talking to them about some things, having a couple that you can go to, I think all of those foundational things that you need as you usher into this next season. And we didn't have any of that.
You guys didn't do
We did premarital.
Engagement,
but it was we didn't take it seriously. We sat in the room, but it was kind of like, yeah, we got this. And again, he was someone who worked at the church, and he was someone who already I saw as a seasoned Christian. And so I took his lead in a lot of that. And I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know the kinds of things that I wanted in a relationship until after the marriage, when I recognized there were some gaps and some things that I was missing and needing in a relationship.
I know you mentioned in the beginning that you didn't fully love yourself. How important is, looking back, how important is it to know yourself and to love yourself before making that commitment?
It's a non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable because you're making choices based on what you think you know about yourself. Truly, I think if you don't love yourself and know how to make yourself happy, How can you expect another person to do that for you if you don't know that of yourself? Right. And so for me, I really was expecting this man to make me happy. And that's a lot to put on a person and I didn't even know what made me happy. So I needed some therapy before, and I wished I had allowed people into my life to even double click into some of that. Now, would I have listened to them? Probably not.
And that's
right, because I was also shady. I thought I knew. Let me be clear.
and also
yeah.
I think when we're in love and we know we want, it is hard to tell someone. Like, I was
That's
just talking
true.
to a girlfriend of mine, and she was like, my cousin should have told me that my ex was so-and-so. And I'm like, no one could tell you anything.
That's true.
when
That's
you were
true.
in the peak of that relationship.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you take it very offensively, and
That's
you can
true.
get hostile, you get defensive, and you're going to
That's
defend
right.
your... Look, it is... That's my man, and I'm sticking by
That's
him.
my man.
And that's just the
Yeah,
mentality you
that
have.
is.
So, like, you know, I
Yeah.
love how you said a board of directors, but maybe isn't it important to maybe set that up beforehand and build that trust? Because when we get in the thick of a relationship and that guy is checking boxes, and you like, look, he's checking all these boxes. Yes, he has some flags, but look, he's checking these boxes. I'm ready to walk down this aisle. I'm ready to have some children. You really can't tell that person anything.
That's so true. And that's why it's so important. You got to bring your friends along. Like, and you also have to respect some of the feedback. Like, now I know too much now to be like, if a friend is telling me something, she knows me enough to be like, hey, did you consider this? I now know my friends know me enough that if they're seeing something that I'm not seeing, I'm now recognizing, that's a blind spot for me, right? And so the red flags, while it's not necessarily, saying don't get married, but the red flags are like, did you have a conversation? How do you really feel about this? Is this one of the things that you think you can get over? Is this a trait, or if this is a person's character? Are you willing to, is this a forever character trait that you're going to be able to deal with? And I think people think that they can tolerate things they see, and then sometimes you can only tolerate things for so long, then it becomes a deal breaker. So even if you see traits in your significant other that you don't like, you have to really be honest with yourself and say, is this something that I can tolerate, or is this a deal breaker?
Speaking of that, what you could tolerate versus the deal breakers, I know you said there were some flags going into the marriage that you ignored.
Yeah.
Once you were in the marriage, what happened? Did those flags become bigger? Did you notice other things? Like how did that transpire?
It was, so we were so careful to not burn in sin. We didn't foster intimacy. We didn't see each other. It was like we were friends. It was like we just carried on our friendship into the marriage, and there was no real passion. And that was a flag, because I think in Christian marriages, if you're not talking about like transparency about this is what I like and this is what I view as intimate and this is, holding hands, we did none of that. And so
But I feel like in courting we would look at that, he has restraint. He's trying to, protect us
I'm
from
his
going
sister
that
in
far.
Christ.
Right.
That's in my mind. I'm like,
I'm
wait
like,
till we
isn't that
get
what we
married.
want?
It's going. But
so you're saying that's a flag?
I think it's, yes, he's protective and I'm his sister in Christ, but there still needs to be, I want to rip your clothes off. I never can transparently say that I wanted to rip his clothes off, right? I think there was that, and this is just keeping it 100%, but there was just not that. And I thought, well, maybe that'll come because, I'm also like super, super afraid to do anything that's going to mess up our Christian walk. So I never even explored or gave myself permission to even explore, well, why aren't you trying to jump this man? You know what I mean? That's a flag on my own, right? And then I'm reading him not jumping me in a sense of like, oh my God, he's such a man of God. Look, he's celibate.
Yeah.
And I'm telling myself all of these stories that may or may have been true at the time, but we never talked about some of the preconceived notions that I had in my mind. I never even asked him some of that. It was kind of like, yeah, sex is a thing. We didn't talk about sex in the marriage. We just knew it was going to happen. Right. So that was a flag.
And was the expectation that it's going to happen. And because you did it God's way, it's going to be mind blowing.
Exactly. It was
gonna
going
be
to be
great.
mindful. And, you know, I'm coming into marriage. I had experience outside the marriage, into marriage. So even that messed me up, right? Because now my thought of what this was going to be vastly different than what, I mean, in the beginning, it's supposed to be that way. And it was. But when we continued the marriage, the desire just wasn't there. We were just, it was the business of the household. And then we traveled, and work wasn't numbing because we were both working. And so it was like we work, we come home, we talk about work, but there was no deep connection. But in my mind, and again, I didn't have anyone that I was talking to about some of these things. I'm thinking, okay, well, I guess this is what a Christian marriage is. Shrugs.
So you just accepted
So I just
the
accepted
reality.
it. I accepted the reality, and I kept it pushing. And 3 years later, got pregnant with my son. And then it became...
Was that planned?
That was planned.
Okay.
So I think I was 30. Yep, 3 years later. And then it became the business of the pregnancy, the business of my son. And then fast forward 19 months later, my daughter came, and it became the business of the kids. And so all the unsaid things are just, you kind of just forget, because now it's like we have two humans we need to take care of. And so the marriage was the marriage, but it really more felt like a business partnership. And the business was taking care of the household and the kids and work. And so I buried myself in work because I sensed it was like always in the back of my mind, an unsaid thing, and I felt it here all the time. It was like someone was pressing on my chest. And because I'm a problem solver in marketing, I couldn't quite figure out how to solve my problem in real life, if that makes sense, right? And to be such a fierce marketer and not be able to figure out your personal life, I felt like a complete failure. I felt like a sham.
Oh, so my question is, did you guys try counseling? Did you verbalize your feelings? Did you try to spice it up? Like, what were some of the solutions that you put into place, and what were the results?
So counseling, 100%, we tried it. But here's the thing about counseling. Both parties need to work at it, right? And so early on, when we started the therapy session, she quickly came to realize, oh, y'all both need separate counseling sessions. Because
really? The counselor said you guys need
the
separate?
counselor was like, now listen, y'all. You need to be able to work out some inner child, some trauma, in addition to couples therapy. And I think, again, that's a kind of a busting myths right now. When you're in a marriage situation and you're going to therapy many times, well, I recommend both parties should get therapy separately to work on their things, because everybody comes with things, you know what I mean, or baggage into a marriage, and then collectively work towards the relationship. So one of our first exercises, she was like, well, she spotted the intimacy, because I've been sharing like, something's off, we're not connecting, and not being in a naggy wife, but like really, sharing, you don't feel this is, you know what I mean? And, he'd nod along, but it wasn't a concern of his, because it's kind of like, well, ebbs and flows. But for me, intimacy was a huge, and I never said that though.
Right.
I never said that. And so for me, I'm like, why does it feel so dry here? And so when we started going to therapy, that was the first exercise she told us to do, I'll never forget this, was for us to bathe each other.
Really?
And I was like, yes, girl, we about to get, I'm like, get the bubble bath or whatever.
Right.
And it was almost kind of like joke time. It was, the exercise was not one that we took seriously, because it was like, girl, your hair is going to get wet. And I'm like, so it wasn't
romantic.
It wasn't romantic. It was like, they're making us do this exercise and now we're going to do it. And
did he set the tone and you sort of just fed off of that? Because did you go in there? It sounded like you wanted to make that a romantic moment, but he was like, sort of dismissive.
Yes.
Is that what happened? And you sort of just downplayed your feelings?
I downplayed my feelings because that was actually our relationship. It was very much, we were friends. And so everything was kind of a joke, or we would find levity in situations, and that's how we connected. So it wasn't a weird thing for us to joke about this, because we're really good friends. We're really good co-parents now, but we didn't realize it was a next level of connection in marriage. And no
And
one
he wasn't
shared.
concerned about that.
No. And then finally, eventually, it was kind of like, yeah, I see that you're unhappy and I want us to fix it. But the fixing came in working on each other individually. And that work takes time and that work takes consistency. And so I continued the individual therapy, he kind of fell away. And now you're unequally yoked, right? Because now one person is growing and seeing things that you become the therapist for the other person. That gets tiring and no one wants to do that. And so for me, after about maybe 6 months of therapy, I started to recognize, yeah, this ain't gonna work.
Really?
Yeah.
And were there any other issues besides the lack of intimacy that contributed to the
communication?
Separation? Okay.
We just didn't talk.
Mm.
And it'd be more, we'd watch a show and we'd talk about the show, but what did it mean to me? But again, therapy is huge now, and self-reflection is huge now. Back when we were dating, none of the social media wasn't even really a thing to like learn how to think about love languages and all that. I mean, we slowly start to understand each other's love language. But I think by that point, I was kind of like, it's a wrap. Yeah. But it was many, and again, remember 2 young kids too. So you're busy with their lives. And so years just went by. It was just status quo. And on my side, I started to feel resentment and I started to feel like I need an escape. So I just buried myself in work. And then finally, a friend of mine said, you should probably go back to therapy. Because after some time, I stopped therapy. And she's like, you should probably go back to therapy. And then, when you're looking for a therapist, you go to the different people and they give you like a sheet and you fill it out. And then when the therapist is reading my sheet, she's like, have you considered that you're depressed? The devil's a liar. What are you talking about?
Rebuke that.
What are you talking about? But
because
I've been unhappy for so long, because I've been trying to solve for me, solve for him, solve for the kids, solve for work, and didn't have any answers or resolution, it felt like I was just in this spiral, this cycle of just unresolved issues. And in fact, some of the symptoms that I was feeling was a sign of depression. I wasn't really eating. I was isolating myself. I didn't let anybody in because I felt like, okay, if I shared my business, they tell you don't talk about what's going on in your marriage really because you don't want nobody to know your business. And I just became recluse. And those are all signs of depression. And so she's like, yeah, you may be depressed. And I was like, oh my God, I'm depressed.
So you're feeling depressed. Mm-hmm. You're feeling resentment. Mm-hmm. Liv, were you resentful towards God? Because you did everything the right way.
I did it.
The way the church.
Read me. Yeah, you better read me.
The way the church said it.
100%.
You had the church's blessing. You guys honored God in that way.
Yeah. I wouldn't. So resentment because I didn't know enough yet to understand God is love in its entirety. I almost looked at God as like my wish master, right? I would go to him for when I needed something. I didn't really have a relationship with him as well. And so it was part resentment, but a really good friend of mine was like, well, but did God tell you to marry this person? Bless my soul. Did he just come for me? No, I don't really think I checked in with God.
So
I thought I did. I thought I got the answers, but
really?
I think that was Liv Lewis. I don't think that was God.
So even though you guys are praying people and in church, you never specifically prayed like, Lord, is this my husband?
I thought I did.
Do that prayer?
I think everyone was so excited for us to be dating that
you look good.
It looked
good
great.
Together.
Oh my gosh, you're fine. I just went with the flow. I would also say that in my Christian walk, I don't necessarily think that I knew God and his voice like I know now, right? I wasn't in my word to get confirmation. I thought I was, but it was superficial. And so, no.
Okay.
That wasn't, I mean, he allowed me. It was my choice. He's not going to say no, but was that of him? Probably not.
That's a question I was having with some of my girlfriends, my Christian girlfriends and I. We were talking about, God gives us free will.
He sure does.
So how much of a role does God play when it comes to our spouse? Is it that God is like, look, I have somebody for you, this is the person, or is it that we sort of navigate life and we sort of, along the journey asking God, is it that fairy tale, like this prince that God created?
You sound like me going into this marriage,
Right.
Selena. I think God has a person and a trait and characteristics that match you well. But this notion of the one,
Right.
well, you become one together. So there's a person for you that meets the purpose God has for you, and you walk that journey together. But there is no fairy tale one, I believe. I believe that there's people that God puts in your life that could be the one, but the one is, well, you become one in front of God, and that's what marriage is. And you become one with him and through him for his purpose. But I mean, again, this is just years of healing, years of understanding, having the language to put towards that. But before it was, oh, Prince Charming is gonna rescue me.
Right. And that was your feeling.
That was my understanding of what marriage was.
That was your unspoken expectation.
Unspoken. I did not verbalize it at all.
What was his expectations for you?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I know your needs weren't met in certain areas. Did he ever feel like his needs weren't met?
I don't think I ever asked that direct question. I would say I thought that if I would show up, be the pretty girl, be the perfect Christian, support the ministries that he supported, make sure the kids are fine, I think that pray when he, I think for me, check mark.
Yeah.
But did I actually say what is a good wife? What is your expectations of a wife? I don't think
so. You guys didn't talk about that. So Liv, we see that the point you got to that point where you're like, this is over. What, hindsight being 2020, how did you contribute to the end of your marriage? How did you?
I checked out. I was so numb at that point, and I had to be mindful of not being resentful and bitter because, again, we had 2 young kids. And so I just became, again, I just poured into work. I just separated the marriage itself, and I just poured myself into the kids and work. It was kind of like, good morning, and it was never a tension. It just was just nothing.
It was just bland.
It was just bland. But it wasn't,
dry.
and I wish it wasn't, we weren't fighting.
Right.
There wasn't tension. It was just running the house. And all that comes with it, and what I would say, we were good partners in, because we both were individuals within marketing. We were really good about project management. It was like, the dinner, the grocery shopping, the kids, it was just like a well-oiled machine of things. But the actual things that go into a marriage, we didn't have that recipe at all.
So a lot of Christians, we believe that the only way to get divorced is if one person is commits adultery or abuse. It sounds like you guys had neither.
No.
So how did you feel about divorcing a husband who is not abusive, is not committing infidelity? Like, how did you reckon with that as a Christian?
I felt like I was selfish. I felt so much shame because it was as though I was breaking something that wasn't broken. And I also felt like there was this expectation to bear it, to hold on to the sorrow, to hold on to this feeling, because if I changed anything, then I'm breaking up a happy home. And so I carried that for a long, long time in understanding what it would mean to him, understanding what the impact it would be to my kids. And I'm repeating history because now my parents were divorced. Now I'm a product of a divorce. And so that internal narrative was always playing in my mind. And so, I would say I was ready to be done year 7, married for 14 years.
Wow.
So while I knew it was over, I still have to be mindful of the timing of the separation because I didn't want to do it in a way that was disruptive to my kids, but also, well, and him. And because I love this guy, I also knew, and that's one of the reasons why I struggle with separating was, well, where is he going to go? And again, now with therapy, that's actually not something I need to solve for. He's grown. You need to solve for you and your kids. But for a long time, I struggled with feeling shame, feeling guilt because I knew that I struggle with choosing me. And there's bravery that comes with choosing yourself. There's bravery that comes with breaking your own heart. And there's bravery that comes with an acceptance of you're not that person anymore and you need to move forward with grace and kindness. And that took a lot of therapy. In fact, I had to get into therapy to figure out, well, how do I unpack and uncouple from something that, from the outside looking in was okay. Yeah.
That's a huge gem. The bravery to break your own heart.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a little bit? What does that mean to you?
Because I chose this. I chose the marriage. I chose my happily ever after, right? I didn't know what I didn't know then. Now that person that chose that now had to reckon with the impact of that decision. And I had to break my old desire of what I thought happily ever after was. And I had to break people's hearts for my happiness. And I felt that was selfish. And I felt that that was unfair. And I also was running all the different scenarios in my mind of, okay, now my kids are divorced. What kind of mental strain are they going to be on? What kind of mental strain is he going to be on? And also, too, at the time, he had lost his job. And so I had the financial responsibility as well, right? And so it took me years to unpack that and to get unfrozen from that and to finally share with my friends what was really going on, because I wasn't telling anyone.
Was the divorce mutual or is it just what you wanted?
It was mutual.
Okay.
He saw it as well. But again, I'm the kind of person that if there's a gap, if there's a thing, I'm the one that's going to do something about it. I'm the catalyst in most situations. And so I think if I didn't move forward with divorce, we'd probably still be married.
So it was you who initiated it and executed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was willing to stay, to just stay status quo, or was he willing to work on it?
I think status quo, because the work meant working on himself. And I don't know if he was ready to do that kind of work, because to do trauma work and inner child work takes time, but you have to want to do it. It's not easy. It's ugly. Nobody wants, to unpack that.
You got to be ready emotionally and mentally to tackle those type of battles.
And you have to feel safe enough to unravel and become in a cocoon, right? Because that's not a lovely process either. And so I don't even know if I provided a safe environment to be able to unbecome and then become again, because I was just focused on, well, I'm unhappy, and so this needs to be done.
Okay, so you get the divorce.
So wait, before we even get to the divorce, I had to work up courage to even say, I want a divorce. And I'll never forget, finally, after recognizing that depression's hit, I'm in therapy, and it was like right after Christmas in January, he was doing the dishes, and I went to the kitchen. I was like, this isn't working. It's time for us to separate. And so that's when it was almost kind of like a unsaid agreement that, like, yeah, you're right. And
he agreed in that moment.
Yeah, because it was just almost like we were in such a dry place that we really just stopped working on the marriage and just focused on the kids. And so for me, I just couldn't bear that anymore. And so, yeah, it was a agreement of, yeah, we tried.
And you feel like you tried everything possible.
We tried everything possible. Gotcha. I would say we tried everything possible, but I also knew that if two people aren't working towards the same goals,
Yeah.
you're not going to get to a place where, okay, we worked on the marriage, we can continue. And I didn't believe that he would get there. And I just didn't want to waste any more time.
So when you said I want a divorce, was it a feeling of relief? Like what were the feelings and the challenges after that you felt
Oh my goodness.
emotionally, mentally?
So there was part relief. So I said I want a divorce, but then now what?
Yeah.
So I started to, and I'm a preparer of sorts. So I started to now think about, well, what does preparation look like? And I call lawyers, and it was just so much information, and it was so much thrown at you when according to the law. I would say you have to understand the law in your state to be able to even understand what your plan is going to be to uncouple or to divorce. And so for me, I remember I called a lawyer and I shared that I'm this, they ask you kind of basic questions, kids, who's working, who's not. And he said to me, it's cheaper to keep him. And I closed the notebook, I remember, and I just stopped. That's what one of the lawyers said.
Wow.
And so I think that I stopped for a year.
Wow.
Yes.
Because of the finances.
Because
you were still the one. You were the breadwinner.
I was the breadwinner, and I didn't okay, so I'm stuck. So he said that to me, the lawyer. So what I heard though was, well, you're stuck in this. And so I remained stuck, and then in therapy, working through, well, why is it that you're struggling with choosing yourself? That was a big aha moment for me, that really and truly I continued. I would say I love myself, but my actions were not congruent. I wasn't showing myself love because after I said I want a divorce, it took some time. And so preparing for my finances, I started to, separate our finances. I started to build my credit, prepping for the unknown. And then I learned through my therapist that, well, you don't necessarily have to get lawyers. You can mediate. You can go through mediation. And so in that mediation process, that's when I learned the law in New Jersey is that the person who is a financial breadwinner is the one responsible for spousal support and is the one responsible for a majority of the things that were in the marriage, assets, liability, and all of that. Now that also took a heavy weight.
Yeah, the financial burden. Can you talk about how do you prepare to take on all of that?
Well, you don't, because it's like, what now? And I remember, I'll take a step back, because I am the kind of person that I prepare really well. And I also prepare for the surprises. I anticipated that if I really want to end this marriage and leave, well, freedom isn't free. So I knew that there would be a cost. Now, did I know how much what the cost was going to be in a dollar amount? No, but I knew there was going to be a cost associated with me trying to be free, and I was prepared for it. I would say emotionally prepared for it, but still, when the news came that like, well, you're going to be responsible, because we had options as to, do we sell the house? Do we, do we whatever that was, and then, split the profits. But I didn't want to disrupt again the kids. And so I just decided to take on the debt. I decided that, you know what, I'm in a position that I can afford to take on the debt. And so, but I was pissed. I was pissed about the spousal support, so much so that I was just calling my friends. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of my friends who are successful marketers or successful Black entrepreneurs, a few of them who were divorced were in the same position. And so I'll never forget, one of my really good friends says to me, girl, pay him. You'll always make more. Now, if I didn't have that advice, I'd probably still be fighting the legal system to this day. And that's kind of the seed that started Liv, because first I was mad, and I was like, what if I created a fund where Black and brown women can come and borrow so they don't have to pay spousal support? And what if I just crowdsource it, right? Because again, I'm the kind of person who's going to fix a problem, and this is a problem, right? And so through healing and through journey, I recognized that, no, what I really needed was community. What I really needed was a people to speak into my life to help me through this journey, and I didn't have that. I had my friends, but as soon as I started opening up and sharing my story, I started to find other women who'd gone through the process, and there were these unspoken things. I was like, well, why aren't we talking about this outside? And that's kind of the seeds that created and started Lived.
And I'm so glad that you segued into this platform. Again, this beautiful platform that empowers women of color who are experiencing separation and divorce.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the resources that
Absolutely.
you provide through this community and why it's so important for women
Yeah.
to find community. My parents divorced as well, and my mom, there wasn't even an internet
Right. Yeah.
a prominent internet. So why is it so important to find a digital community and these resources?
I go back to when I first thought about divorce. Where do you go, right? Google. And I got so overwhelmed with information. And so I put myself in the position of, if I were going through this process and I went through the process, what are some of the things that I'd need? But I need to understand what to prepare for. So when you get on the site, the first thing that pops up is a divorce checklist. It's 6 things that you need to consider. First step, take a deep breath. And also, 2, we keep it a buck. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. And then the following steps kind of helps you think about the pieces you need to have in place just to even begin the process. So that's the divorce checklist. Then there's a resource hub. The resource hub has the law across 50 states. So you're in Wisconsin, you click on Wisconsin, you understand what the law is. You have the paperwork and the PDFs all in that place for you, because you do need to understand the law in your state. In addition to that, we have vetted lawyers, vetted therapists. I'm pointing to different other platforms that helped me go through the process. We have a fitness expert, because divorce is not just law. You have to think about your mental health. You have to think about your physical health. You have to think about joy. What are the small things that give you joy? So there's a Black Girl Magic section where you can find Black things or Black artists or to help you. There's a Spotify list. There's biweekly Zoom meetings. There's a WhatsApp group, because sometimes in the midnight hour your friend is sleeping. Who you gonna call? Not Ghostbusters, child. No, so that WhatsApp group is a private group of other women who've gone through this process that you can say, hey, I'm struggling right now. And either we pick up the phone, we send you an encouraging message, because those are all the things that I felt I needed as I was going through the process. Because again, to be able to really go through trauma and to come out on the other side, you need a safe space to be able to unbecome, to become.
And again, so it's live.com.
So it's LIV.co.
.co. Thank you for that. I like how you just said about becoming. I know you have a quote that says something along the lines of, divorce helped me become the woman I was always meant to be.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Because I think it takes a hard thing or trauma to really open up your eyes about who you really are and what you can really endure and go through. I think it takes some kind of fire. And if you think about diamonds, if you think about pressure, right? It takes some kind of pressure or fire to refine you to become better. And I think for me, divorce was that, because now I have a mirror that I'm seeing a reflection of a refined person, but I'm only able to see that person because of what I've been through. And in order to be able to do that, you need to be able to have a safe space to unpack some of the mess, to unpack and feel that it's okay. It's okay to have made a mistake if you're the one that, went into this marriage and thinking like it's one way and it's another. But there's also a huge women, a bunch of women who are in a place where they stop working, right? And now they're solely relying on a significant other that wants to divorce them. Now what? So I have a huge vision for the Live platform. I want to create legislation for women like that. I want to create housing for women who are displaced. I want to be able to have them just come to a place where, we'll Instacart you food, get yourself together, and then usher you into your next chapter. So there's a larger vision for Live, but we're really just starting small right now, getting feedback, and then continue to grow from there.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a huge advocate for turning pain into purpose.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
nothing happens. Everything happens for a reason.
100%.
And, even, scripture tells us all things work for good for those who love the Lord.
Amen.
And I just love, Liv, how you have turned, again, this traumatic experience
Thank you.
into such a help, because life is going to happen.
Life is
And
gonna
I think the
life.
statistics show that, what is it, like 50% of all marriages are ending in divorce?
Yeah. And
especially even in the Christian community.
well, it's worse in Christian community. And the stats are staggering. And so what is that about? It's really about the hardening of hearts. It's really about, to be able to be in a marriage, you have to die to self. You have to. Nobody wants to die to self. Let's be so for real, right? So, but it has to be mutual dying.
Both people have to die to self.
Yes.
It can't be one person over-indexing.
And that's what I did not know.
Speaking of things you didn't know, are you open to getting married again? And if so, what information and tools and resources would you bring into your next marriage so that it will be long lasting?
This answer is hilarious, because this is a sign that I'm healing, because before the answer was like, girl, no, I know too much. But again, trauma teaches you to close up. Healing teaches you boundaries, right? And so for me, yes, open to getting married again. Now know what I want in a partner. Now know what I need in an individual, understanding my purpose and how that individual together in relationship with God, how are we moving forward, what God ordained us to be. And so yes, the answer is I'm open now to exploring marriage again, but with individuals who know me, to be like, that ain't you. And allowing them. So whoever this person is, they'll have to know, listen, I have blind spots. So you're going to have to talk to this person. And yes, they're going to have to approve, because I just want to make sure that this person knows me and I'm not pretending with an individual, that I'm open and honest and that my boundaries are clear, because it's not just me. I also have 2 kids to be mindful of as well. And so those are some of the things that I'm working through. I'm still in therapy, continuing to learn myself, continuing to do the inner child work that comes with self-worth, value, and I now know whose I am, and that my value comes from him and not from a title, from an individual, or from anything that I could have, but just because I'm a child of God.
I love that. And I also love the board of directors that you referenced.
Yes.
So
get you a board
key.
of directors for your life.
Get you a board of directors. And my advice too is that if you're going to have a board of directors, be open to listening to them, and maybe even presenting a potential partner early, because once emotions get in and your heart, look, we get in that stage where you can't tell us anything.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So you might be like, I'm not listening to my board.
Yeah.
So just make sure that, again, set that up and, be open early.
I think be open early, but I also think you have, if I'm saying, hey, Selena, I want you to be the board of directors of my life, it comes with, okay, Liv, if I'm going to tell you something, you have to agree to listen and do.
Listen and do.
Listen and act, because there's a reason this person has questions. There's something they see that you don't see that's caused them to ask. So if that's the relationship and the accountability that you're putting on a person, you have to be open to when the person says a thing you don't like. And I have my best friends tell me things I don't like all the time, but they know me so well that I have to listen, because I trust that they have my best interest, but I also, that's the relationship, that's the deal, that I have to listen with humility to what they're saying, because there's truths there.
Be humble enough to listen. I think another thing, starting to think about the best way to go into a relationship, right? Board of directors, being healed as well. I know we talked about, self-love and also knowing yourself, but making sure that you start your healing journey, because that's in my opinion, the only way to really fall in love with yourself and understand yourself, what makes you tick, what your triggers are, what you can and cannot tolerate. Because when you have a strong understanding of that, it's easy to see in another person if they are going to be, beneficial and help you in different areas, or if they could be harmful.
Yeah.
So if we could just, talk about just, again, the importance of maybe being in therapy or starting therapy
Yeah.
before you get into a relationship, especially a marriage.
Yeah. Listen, I think therapy, everyone needs therapy. There's there are behaviors, there's patterns you don't even know you're doing until you start unpacking some of the repetition in mistakes. So if you're doing the same thing over and over, that's a sign of insanity, right? So, but I think even before you get to therapy, you have to just be honest. I think people are not honest with themselves about their things.
Yep.
And I think everybody thinks, oh, I'm good. So I
Yep.
think even before therapy,
Denial.
you have to be honest with what you see as gaps in yourself and then wanting to now go do something about it. You can't motivate anybody to go to therapy. You can't motivate anybody to change. They have to want to change on their own for it to be a lasting change, right? And so I think honesty and transparency and knowing yourself and then identifying that, you know what, I might need to go talk to someone about it. I think people have is a bad rep in therapy that they're going to make me do. No, they really just help you see who you are. They're a mirror. If you find a good therapist, right, that's essentially you start to recognize some of your patterns. I would say a lot of I didn't even know that my inner child work that I had to do was because of being sent to live in Africa, and it's starting at 18 months, right? It was like a fundamental invisible thing that if I look across every aspect of my life, it feeds into work, even how I parent, right? And so I think fundamentally to begin the healing journey, start with being honest with yourself. You find a good therapist, and you know you have a good therapist when they tell you stuff you don't like to hear, but also you feel safe enough to talk about some of those unsaid things, some of the things that you have that is just, you don't even have the words, because that's a sign that like, we're getting somewhere.
Trauma has a way of exposing itself, especially and it can be in a very negative way, especially when you're in partnership with someone. So like a requirement that I know a lot of people have is no, you have to have been in therapy or be in therapy because that trauma is going to be projected in one way or another. It's either now or later. So, and you need to be aware, like being aware of my trauma was so pivotal for me, especially in relationships, because I remember my first therapist, she helped me identify behaviors in my boyfriend at the time that were directly rooted from my father and like that abandonment. And she was like, the reason why you reacted like that and did that is because your father did X, Y, and Z, and like the correlation was like mind blowing. And
weren't you like, what?
It was, I remember I was
yeah.
like 18. I think I started doing therapy. No, I just started I started going to my first therapy sessions around maybe about 21. And from there, I was just like, oh, shoot, that's a trigger. And I realized that even like beyond relationships, just in friendships and platonic relationships, I have certain triggers. There's certain characteristics that I can't take in people. And if I see it, I'm doing an about face. So again, just to emphasize, like, you need to know yourself.
Yeah.
And just not only is it beneficial for you, but it's unfair to bring that level of baggage into a relationship.
Absolutely.
And expect that person to just deal with you and deal with how you deal with triggers and trauma. That is unfair. And you can become a love bully.
And unhealthy. And I love, kudos to you for just recognizing your triggers. I love that you also said that it helps with your friendships. It spews into so much of your relationship. I think transparently, I had no business getting married. I wasn't ready to get married, and it was unfair for me to enter into a marriage because I was a emotionally unhealthy person. So no matter what he did, the reckoning had to be, what did I do to get myself here? Identifying that, forgiving myself. Oh, I had this exercise and my therapist she had me talk to myself to forgive myself. Now I know her Jedi mind tricks. When she says close your eyes, I know like, oh, let me get the tissue because she's going to make me cry. But I didn't recognize how much my inner person was mad at me for getting us into these situations. So I had to apologize to her because I wasn't listening to her. And I also now had to recognize my gut and get used to trusting that gut. Because if I go back to dating, my gut was saying, girl, this ain't right. But I just pushed her aside. So she was mad at me. And I had to go back and reconcile that to now be a whole person.
That's deep. And I think a lot of times we don't trust our gut because we don't trust ourselves. And again, that is something.
That's a bar, Selena. You better, woo, that's good.
And that's something also that can be addressed in therapy, because that inner small voice is always there.
It is.
And we can't suppress it, especially when it comes to marriage and relationships. That's the biggest decision someone can make. Like, that determines the trajectory of your life. Who you are partnered with.
But when you think about your inner voice, your inner child voice, and you think about the inner small voice of Jesus, when you think about developing a relationship, how do you know his voice? Well, you have to listen. You have to consistently. How do I know your voice if I'm your friend? I talk to you all the time. I'm in a relationship with you. I know what you sound like. I know the kind of advice you give, right? So you have to not just ignore, you can't ignore your gut because you don't know yourself. But if you're trying to also foster a relationship with God, well, you have to get in his word to know his character, to know who he is, to recognize, oh, that's the Lord right there. And that's when you hear something else that sounds more like yourself, you're like, oh, that was me and my selfish desire, not God, right? So understanding the difference between your inner self, your inner selfish self, and then, of course, Jesus and his Holy Spirit and how he speaks to you. So
that's good.
That's
good.
Work. People are lazy. Ain't nobody trying to do that.
Look, let me tell you something. Like, my goal is and it's possible to get so aligned with God through Jesus and his will that his voice is the voice you only hear. Like, I don't even want to hear about, because my decision, first of all, like, God knows the end from the beginning. Man. I'm like, I don't need to hear my voice. I'm like, Lord, what is it that you're trying to tell me? Where is it that you're trying to guide me and direct me? And to your point, like, you can't know someone if you don't spend time with them.
Yeah. And isn't it beautiful, though? He knows the beginning and the end, saw that I'm making a mistake, and turned it into something beautiful like Lived. Isn't that just God? Like, you better, right? Because he was like, well, all right, make this decision, but I'm just gonna, it's like I somehow was supposed to be doing something purposeful for Black and Brown women. And I built my Black is Beautiful, and that's a community. So I'm now building Lived as a community. So there's no mistakes. And that's what I rest on. That's what brings me peace, is that, you know what? This was a mistake. Accountability, healed from it, now doing something about it, so maybe others don't get into the same issues or face some of the struggles that I did. I definitely didn't divorce gracefully, you know what I mean? And so that is really and truly the purpose now and the mission, is to help other women maybe not make the same mistakes that I did.
Absolutely, Liv. And I know we do have to bring this conversation to a close.
Oh my goodness, it's been so good.
I know, we're probably over time. But before we end, I do want to just get your final thoughts on what you know now, and what you would have done differently, and then also, just the joy that you get from Lived, right? Like, I mean, I feel like for a lot of us, if you're going through a divorce or separation, that's a new chapter in life. And where are you going to put your energy and effort? You're no longer working on a relationship or pouring into a person, but you still have that energy, and you still want to, you still have some purpose. And to be able to translate that into something so positive is such a beautiful thing.
Thank you. My therapist would say that I manifested my grief.
Oh, wow.
Or is that what she would say? Memorialized. I'm so sorry. I memorialized my grief. She said she was doing her dissertation, and what happens in trauma is once a person is starting their healing journey, they start to create something about their trauma. And that's a sign that they're in their healing process, because they're doing something about it. I would say, you know what didn't I know? I didn't know myself. I also didn't even know the importance of knowing self. I didn't love myself. I was saying I love myself. My actions were incongruent, and I was making decisions based on proving. Like, if you were to look at me, you would never think that I'm a people pleaser, but a lot of my behavior signaled that I was a people pleasing because I was trying to prove my worth. And fundamentally, the lesson for me is I am worthy not because of what I do or who I'm married to or what I'm worthy, and my value is tied to being a child of God. And that is the lesson. And continuing that relationship also means that I'm feeding myself and my soul, and I'm in alignment with who I'm meant to be.
So good. So good, Liv. Let us know one more time how to find your platform.
Yes.
And your podcast as well.
Yes. So lived.co. So LIVD as in David.co. And on social media, it's Lived Stories. Podcast is Lived Stories, and you can find it anywhere, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to your podcast. And for members, there's Lived After Dark, and that's where we get into some really, really nitty-gritty conversations, a little bit more private, so you have to be a little member to do that. And you know what? People have just been pouring the stories that I'm hearing from women who are either gone through divorce and saying, I wish this was here, or I feel seen. And thank you. It's just so overwhelming, and I know that I'm in the place that I'm supposed to be.
Liv, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. This is so good.
This was so good. Thank you not only for your time today, but the purpose in your life and how it is helping so many people just get over the hill, get over that hump. Like, I think that, us as people, relationships play such a pivotal part in our mental health and in our emotional health. And when you go through a trauma like a separation or divorce, and you feel like there's nowhere to turn, that can make it make it feel even worse.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
There are resources. Live.co is one of them. And therapy is an option that I will continue and always advocate for, because you can literally get over that hill. We all go through ebbs and flows. We all go through ups and downs. And when you're in that valley, just continue to look up towards the light. It does get better. Liv, you are a living testimony.
I am living proof.
Living proof to that. And again, I just want to thank you for everything you shared today.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. It means so much.